Your core attachment fears will override your core attachment needs. Let me explain. Leslie Wells, connection coach. I help individuals improve their relationships. I help them break negative cycles, negative patterns, and really get to a place where they're able to understand one another better and show up better for themselves and their partner by looking at things through an attachment lens. I work a lot on helping people heal their ruptures, any betrayals, all the negative cycles that just lead things to feeling really, really bad. So each of the three insecure attachment styles have deep core wounds, and out of those core wounds, they have deep needs, right? And the problem is that all of them operate from this place of deep fear. They're always sort of doing these behaviors that are unproductive, that may have served them in childhood, where all of this came from, but they're not serving them in adulthood. But these unproductive behaviors are leading them to be driven by fear. And out of their fear, they will neglect their own needs while simultaneously doing unproductive behaviors to get their needs met. So it's this crazy cycle. So let me give you some examples here. When we look at the anxious, preoccupied individual, this individual, their biggest need is to feel safe and secure and close in the relationship. Their big fear is abandonment. They're afraid that they're going to be rejected and abandonment, and they're terrified of being alone. Most of their self-worth comes from their relationship. And so one of the ways that they will, their fear will override their needs is when it comes to conflict. So for the anxious preoccupied, they may have a need that they need met in the relationship. Let's say that they need more quality time together. That's super important to them. They need lots of time together. They want to feel very much like they're a close, solid, good relationship, and they need lots of reassurance in that the relationship is secure and stable. Lots of time together. They can be a little bit clingy. So that's one of their core needs. However, their fear of conflict may get in the way of that. And what I mean is this. Let's say they bring this up to their partner, who a lot of times, if they're not secure, may be more avoidant. So the anxious preoccupied brings to their partner, I feel like we're not spending enough quality time together. I want to spend more time together. I need more of you, basically. And let's say the other person starts to feel like, oh my gosh, this person is getting a little clingy, and they start to back away and they start to not feel good. So the anxious preoccupied individual may not get the response that they're looking for. It may create what they feel like is some uneasiness, some disconnect, a conflict. And so they will tuck away their need to be closer, to have more quality time together. They will back away from that need. They will abandon it, and they will avoid the conflict instead. So their fear of the conflict will override their need for more quality time, more closeness together. They will typically back away from their need if there's a conflict that arises, because the conflict brings about for them fears that if the conflict doesn't go well, there's going to be a disconnect, they might be rejected, and there could be the potential worst case scenario for the relationship to end and them feel abandoned. And that's their big fear. And so when the conflict arises, they typically will not engage with conflict. They will back away from it, they will retreat, they will fawn, they will apologize. So the fear of conflict will override their need for whatever their need is that comes up that they're asking for in that moment. For a fearful avoidant, their fear of betrayal so often overrides their need for connection. The fearful avoidant has this betrayal wound. So they are constantly worried that they're going to be betrayed, that people are going to let them down, that love and people are not safe, they are not trustworthy, they will not show up well for them. They've been let down again and again and again. They know that people in relationships are disappointing, they don't trust it, and so they very much desire intimate connections and they want to be close to someone, but they're terrified of it at the same time. So they have that deep need for connection. But whenever they start to feel close to someone, then they will pull back. They will shut down, they will pull back, and that creates that push-pull dynamic they are so well known for. But again, you can see how their need for connection is overridden by that fear of betrayal through that connection. The more invested they become with a partner, the more that fear grows and the more that they will back away and they will do that push-pull dynamic even more, because now they feel like there's more to lose, there's more at risk. So again, you see where that fear will override the need that exists there. For the dismissive avoidant, one of their core things that they need, one of the things that makes them happy, is peace and harmony. They like things to go smoothly. They don't like a lot of conflict. They don't want situations where there's big emotions, reactivity. They don't like fighting. They really want to keep things just simple, carefree, just easy. And so their fear of conflict will actually get in the way of that peace. So they typically avoid conflict at all costs. Conflict intimacy, closeness, commitment, those things make them shut down. Expectations, they don't feel like they're going to show up well in those things, and so they shut down and they're like, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm going to avoid this. So they really avoid conflict, thinking that it's going to get them their need of peace, which is one of their desires. But it does just the opposite. By avoiding conflict, they tick off their partner. Their partner feels invalidated, unheard, undervalued. They brush things under the rug to avoid the conflict, to keep the peace. But their partner feels like their needs are therefore going unmet. They're not being heard. Things are not getting resolved, which in turn, of course, creates them getting bigger, them getting louder, them trying to get their point across, creates more conflict, bigger conflict. So while they are trying to achieve the peace that is their need, their fear of conflict is actually getting them farther and farther away from the thing that it is that they want. And that's typically what we see happen with the insecure attachment styles, is they get in their own way. Their fears that override their needs mean that their needs typically do not get met. So the fear steps in the way and it gets in the way, and then the need that they so desire, they get farther and farther and farther away from the need. That's where I step in. That's where I help people deal with those wounds, deal with those fears, and stop operating from a place of fear, but operating from a place of secure attachment, from a healthy perspective. And you can't just do that by changing somebody's behavior. You can't just say to somebody, well, if you can't tell a DA, well, if peace is what you want, then you got to go into conflict. You got to deal with conflict. You got to face it head on. That is terrifying to an individual that has a fear that is overriding and they have a dysregulated nervous system. It doesn't work that way. But you can see how the fears that they have, that they're operating on, really, really get them farther and farther away from achieving the needs that they really need to have met. So hopefully that shows you a different perspective on and provides you some more information on how they get in their own way and how fears and needs interact with one another with the insecure attachment styles.